Welcome back to the Play by Play Podcast YouTube channel, where today we have a very quick episode as we are quickly approaching the NFL trade deadline. It ends next Monday, November 4th, and my team, the Denver Broncos, has been in a lot of NFL trade deadline rumors. So today we're going to discuss a couple of those, mainly their opportunity to go out and get a stud number 2 wide receiver, how they are dealing with it at this moment, and what direction I believe they should really pivot in to really improve this squad. So currently the Broncos are in a very interesting window as a team. They are a team that is definitely mixed of some very solid veteran players. You have guys like Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw on that defensive end. On the offensive end, you have stout offensive tackles like Garrett Bowles. Mike McGlinchey is a big-time veteran. Cortland Sutton out on the outside. J.K. Dobbins is in his 5th year, I believe. You have Evan Ingram and whatnot. But you also have a mix of some really solid young guys. Of course, Nick Bonito on that outside linebacker spot. Bo Nix at your quarterback. And a lot of these guys, they actually have not gotten to pay yet and actually extend, which is very important, because right now that gives the Denver Broncos a little bit of a window of having some young, talented players that you're not going out and having to give, max or close to max extensions to, which allows you to have some extra cap space to go out and grow your talent, which is actually what Denver is doing right now. Because one of the weakest positions for the Broncos in terms of depth right now, and for really the past 2 years since they drafted over Bo Nix, has 100% been the wide receiver position. Cortland Sutton, with no real competition at all, has been stuck within that X position at that number 1 wide receiver. And then after that, it's kind of been, players vetting for their opportunity to be at that number 2, at that wide spot. Last year, they had Josh Reynolds for about 4 games before Reynolds got hurt, and then they ended up releasing him. Then you have Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin, two young guys who have been working in there, some good speedsters and whatnot. They had Bailey Jones for all of last year, but then they traded him prior to this season over to the New Orleans Saints, I believe. So you've had a bunch of, and of course also the rookie 3rd-round draft pick Pat Bryant out of Illinois, who did end up catching his first touchdown of his career last week against the Cowboys. Congratulations and shout out to you, Pat. But the Broncos haven't really had an established number 2 guy, and that's been one of the positions that they've really been missing. And they've gotten good play from some of the players that I just mentioned, don't get me wrong, but they want to get somebody across from Cortland Sutton. And the talk is that they want to get somebody across from Cortland Sutton who is the complete opposite of what Sutton brings to the table. Sutton is a lot bigger, he's a lot taller, he plays with much more physical on that outside. They want somebody who will be able to stretch the field with their speed, be a great deep threat, somebody like a Travis Benjamin, who I remember from a couple years back with the Los Angeles Chargers and the Cleveland Browns, and somebody who can also help them within their horizontal passing game as well and can get a lot of yak after they go out and catch the ball, which would be really important. And the biggest name that they are floating around right now is Rashid Shaheed from the New Orleans Saints. And to be honest, I don't like that move whatsoever. Now, this is not to say that Shaheed is a bad player whatsoever. And he has actually, exceeded expectations. A lot of people don't realize that he was actually undrafted a couple of years ago, and he's become a central part of that Saints wide receiver room and of the Saints offense as a whole with his extensive speed. But at the end of the day, I just don't believe that this is enough of a substantial upgrade over Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin to really go out and vet some big-time resources to, some big-time draft picks. I mean, we're looking at possibly maybe a mid-round pick, like a 4th, 5th round, maybe even 3rd. It depends on how valuable the Saints really see him, with him being one of the best players on that offensive side. And the gap just is not that big. Sure, Shaheed, on tape and probably on paper as well, is a lot faster than Mims and Franklin, even though both of those 2 guys are big-time speedsters. But Mims has had some really solid performances over the past couple of games. Franklin is coming off a game against the Dallas Cowboys where he just had 2 touchdowns. I believe that's his first multi-touchdown game for the first time in his career. I could be wrong about that, but those 2 are performing very well, and they're still really young. I mean, I understand that we are in a competing, Super Bowl championship window right now, but I really just don't understand trading for a guy who is honestly, 2, maybe 3 years older than somebody like a Marvin Mims and giving up big-time draft assets when really they are a similar skill set, they're doing similar things on the field, And there's nothing on paper that really shows that Rashid Shaheed is really going to up your offensive lot. His best season came in his sophomore year where he had just over 700 yards and 5 touchdowns. Not to mention the fact that Shaheed has been a player that has been plagued by injury for a majority of his career. In the last 2 seasons, out of the 36 games that he could have played, he only played 12 due to injury. So he's only played a third of his games over the last 2 years dealing with injury. That's a big issue as well. And of course, the more talent, the merrier, the more depth that you can have there. But again, I just don't understand the idea of pegging these guys down, because if you put Shaheed in there and you put him at that number 2 wideout, that then pegs down Marvin Mims to number 3. You have Troy Franklin at number 4. And then you have your third rounder in Pat Bryant, who you were hoping could go out and get some substantial amount of playing time. That's why you drafted him in the 3rd round, who has been doing some really good stuff, especially when it comes to in the running game with blocking on the outside. He goes down to the 5th wide receiver, and now he's not looking at really any playing time at all, unless Denver needs a sub or if they go 5 wide, which they also have Evan Ingram, who they've been playing in more of a slot receiver role in that offense anyways. And speaking of Evan Ingram, tight end has also been a big-time want for the Broncos during this trade cycle, and I don't really understand that either. There's a lot of talk about T.J. Hawkinson, the older veteran, but to be honest, he just seems like a copy of Evan Ingram. Sure, he plays a little bit better on the inline, on the inside, based off of the offensive line, but I just still don't feel like Sean Payton has really catered his playbook to get Evan Ingram involved enough to really be a central part of this offense. And we've seen it in these games, when Evan Ingram gets the ball, he's able to extend plays out and get extra yardage and really put his shoulder down and be able to run somebody over. Like, he has been a guy who has been able to get substantial, solid yards for this offense, and yet I still don't see him getting enough opportunities. In my opinion, if I was the Denver Broncos, number 1, I would possibly look for trade packages on that defensive side. The inside linebacker spot is still a big-time need. You're wondering about the health of Alex Singleton, who is dealing with both coming back from his knee injury and a big-time hand injury that he still has. Dre Greenlaw, who just got suspended, but was also coming off some injury as well. He's coming back, so I understand that. But there could be some looks for depth there. Patrick Surtain, it looks like while he might not be placed on the IR, he still could potentially be missing 2 to 3 games, so maybe getting an inline backup cornerback to go out and play there. That could be very important for them, a left guard, because there is no substantial timeline for when Ben Powers is going to be coming back. I understand that Paucho has done a solid job at that spot, but that could be something that you look to add depth to. And overall, if you're going to go wide receiver, which I do think is a need, and I do think that they could go after, I just think that they need to get a much bigger talent gap. You could stay on the Saints. You could go out and get Chris Olave, who I think is much better than Rashid Shaheed and could act more as a wide position, especially with a lot of that pressure coming off of him and being put towards Courtland Sutton. Jalen Waddle has been a big-time name from the Miami Dolphins. I understand that might be a little bit of a harder get, especially with Tyreek not playing and Waddle becoming their de facto number 1 wideout. But he is someone, especially on that horizontal pass game, that could get across, have some great crossing routes and be able to get you some extra yards off of those passes. And he is somebody who I think would be substantially better than a Troy Franklin, than a Marvin Mims. And it would allow Mims to play a little bit more of a special teams role and be able to operate out of the slot, which would be really, really cool as well. Overall, I just think that the players that the Broncos are looking at right now either aren't much better than the players that they currently had, and thus are just going to take away playing time and development from them, or are in positions that they don't necessarily need. They just need to get better at incorporating those people into their offense, into their defense, into their playbook, instead of really going out and trying to trade for somebody that they believe will be more talented and better. But overall, let me know what you think about all of that down below in the comments. This was a super, super short episode. What do you think about my comments today? Who do you think that Denver should go out for? Would you like possibly them to go out and trade for Rashid Shaheed? In my opinion, that solves absolutely nothing. Or would you like to see them go out and make a bigger splash? Go for Jalen Waddle. There have been talks potentially about A.J. Brown even as well. Go for Chris Olave. Go for that kind of player. Leave all of that down below in the comments, as well as subscribing to the channel, leaving a like, and sharing with your friends. And if you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on all social medias, that being TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those ads are going to be down below. We're on all of those social medias. You'll get to see my latest reaction to breaking news in the NBA, the NFL, and combat sports. And you will never miss for whenever the podcast decides to upload an episode. And without further ado, guys, that's all that I have for you guys today. I will see you guys on the next one. Have a great rest of your week, and peace.